surface, Mario Golf Toadstool Tour may look like a golf game for kids featuring our favorite Italian plumber. However, it's actually an insanely involved game with so much depth. All of its intricacies make it one of the most fun and addictive sports games ever. So, it's time for a deep dive on how Mario Golf Toadstool Tour is shockingly complex. Wait, before we even hit the ball, what exactly are we looking at here? Well, first I need you to look at the subscribe button and click it. Currently, I am only 23 subscribers away from 1,000, which is the benchmark for full monetization. Reaching this goal will allow me to continue making awesome content for you all for years to come. So, thank you in advance for subscribing. However, going back and looking at the game screen, we have a lot of information to digest here. Whenever I play this game with other people, after we have fun picking our characters and such, when we get to this screen I go, okay, give me like 5 minutes to run all this down for you. We have a lot of information presented in our heads up display. The manual has an almost comedic level of detail given for this part. There's a million pointers and references to additional pages, it's pretty silly looking. So here's a super quick breakdown sort of everything you're looking at. The easy ones are things like hole number and shots required for par in the top left. Middle left we see the distance to the pin and the elevation change between the ball and the pin. Top right we have our wind and our score for the individual hole as well as overall in whatever tournament we're playing. The wind has an arrow and a velocity component to it as well. The bottom right is where things start to get a bit weird. With the D-pad you can change where you hit the ball. For example, if you want the ball to have a further bounce, you may want to hit it on the top. If you want the wind to have a greater effect on the ball, then you can hit the bottom. It's more useful than you may think from hearing it, and I change the hit location fairly frequently. Below this section is the lie condition. Now again, this is one of those things I had no idea about as a kid. It's a number that you want to be as close to 0 as possible. If you have a positive or a negative lie, then that much distance will be added or deducted from your shot. Many of the late game obstacles in Bowser Badlands can have a significant effect on your ball lie. Yeah, so it's way more important than you may think, especially when it comes to landing a sick chip shot for birdie. Mind you, Mario Golf Toadstool Tour was the first game I ever owned. I received it with my GameCube for my 6th birthday. I think by the time I hit high school, I finally had a decent understanding of how ball lie played into the game. Continuing on, in the bottom left, we have our club. Now that's pretty self-explanatory, but you get a ton of options here, including numerous woods, irons, wedges, and of course a putter. More options are great, but it does further complicate the decisions that you have to make in the game. Picking between a 3 or a 4 wood can be the difference of going into the water or making it onto the green. Now before we get into actually shooting the ball,
does this mean I get to make a Krabby Patty now?
I'll point out that I'm sure many other golf games are this complicated or even more so. However, guys, the point of this video is that it's freaking Mario Golf. Nobody is going into this game expecting anything comparable to like a pro golf simulator type. However, you can already see many of the factors that play into all the quick math that you have to do before each shot. We aren't even done yet, so let's keep going. Below our club you see our shot type. There's normal, power, and approach. For putting it's long, medium, and short. I can confirm that I can play pretty much every single hole in the game and never have to use long putts. However, the decision to use a power shot or not while driving or chipping is one of the most intense mind games in any long tournament run. You start off with 6 power shots, and if you get perfect power and impact, then you get to keep it. If not, you lose it. Don't worry, in a second I will go over what perfect power and impact means. Stick with me for a bit though. So you have to be mindful of whenever you squander a power shot. If you go below 4 before hole 9, you need to pump the brakes and conserve power shots for the back 9. However, with enough skill, you can get through an entire 18 holes without losing a single one. It's yet another factor that plays into the decisions we make with each shot in Mario Golf Toadstool Tour. Before we begin to shoot, there's one thing we need to look at, and that's outside of our immediate HUD. the grid. When you push X, you can see a close-up of where your shot is going to go. I recommend doing this before literally every shot. And you see this intimidating grid when you do it. You can see some vague movement in the grid and several colors. Here's a breakdown of what it all means. The movement is describing the slope. Whatever the way the lines are moving is the direction of the slope, and you'll need to plan your shots accordingly. These slopes are particularly helpful when it comes to putting, as you need to decide how far to shift yourself to ride the curve. Next, the color describes the elevation. If the grid turns blue, then it means the plane of the grid is lower than the plane of the ball.
And just to clarify, I do mean the landing point of the ball when I say that, not the starting point, obviously.
If the grid turns red, it means the plane is of a higher elevation than that of the ball. Again, this information is mostly helpful when putting, but it is shown for all shots. Okay, so this script is already over 1,000 words, and now it is finally time to hit the ball. But wait, we have multiple ways we can do that. There are two modes, the one I used when I was a kid, and the one you're supposed to use. I'm just kidding. There is a time and place to use auto swing, but it's few and far between compared to using manual swing. To do auto, you just push A to start the power gauge and then push it again. The second part of the shot, which determines the impact point, is done for you automatically. However, there's an element of randomness to it, and it's not always perfect, which is why auto swing is so unfavorable compared to manual. Manual swing is done by pushing A to start your power gauge normally, then you push B to set the power. The meter comes backwards, and you have a brief moment to make the hardest decision in the game, your spin. If you push A or B alone, then you will get no spin. However, if you push A and then A again very quickly, you get top spin. If you push B and then B again very quickly, you get backspin. The spins allow the ball to catch on fire and gain extra momentum or cut the momentum short. Now, one of the secrets in the game is that you can push A and then B when setting the impact, which grants you super top spin. And you guessed it, pushing B and then A grants you super backspin. So yeah, holy crap, the number of things that you have to think about before shooting the ball and while you're in the process of shooting the ball is absolutely insane in Mario Golf Toadstool Tour. So now that we've explained impact, let's circle back to power shots again. You've heard me talk about the impact point and the power now, so when I say perfect power and impact, I mean getting the power meter all the way to the top where Mario does his thumbs up, or wherever you set the power to with the R and L buttons, and then getting the impact point within that green line there. With that combination, you will keep your power shot. So the red line here means your shot will be okay, but it will be off and you'll lose your power shot. If you go outside that red line, well then you might need to play another game because your timing is probably pretty off. Sometimes the red line itself will be very thin though, and that's when it's time to break out auto swing. All of that took me quite a while to explain, I know. However, here's what it all looks like in real time from somebody who has owned the game for over 20 years.
Nice shot. Chip in. Nice eagle. Nice shot. Nice on. Birdie putt. Nice birdie.
Eventually you can really just get a feel for things and fall into a deep flow state with this game. That's truly why I love it so much. You're just coasting, doing all these calculations in your head so rapidly, and you completely lose track of time and everything around you. It's one of the most satisfying games in the world to succeed, and one of the most brutal to fail. So speaking of difficulty, we will delve further into that in our next segment. If you couldn't tell by what I've already said, I don't find this game easy at all. In fact, I would actually say it's... Yeah, so if all that description of the mechanics did not spell it out clearly enough, then I'll just say it. This game is incredibly difficult. Now, granted, the difficulty ramps up over time with the courses, but it does go up tremendously in the later ones. First two courses, though, I can finish with a score of more than 10 under par. Shifting Sands starts to introduce some high-risk situations. Possibly my favorite hole in the entire game is this one here in the later part of Shifting Sands. You have to make the decision to take the long but safe way around the lake, or take a daring shot across the lake that will surely secure a lower score if successful. Things like this are not really present in the first two courses. You can pretty much just blast your way across each fairway and get a solid chance at a birdie putt. However, the opportunity to even reach a birdie putt is only present if you take a risky shot here. As the game continues, we see more intense slopes and thinner fairways. Another mechanic introduced in course 4 then is the fast fairway. Your ball rolls very quickly on these, hence the name, and it can potentially be detrimental if you run super topspin off a fast fairway. So again, in calculating your shots, you need to consider the bounce and roll that your ball is going to have. The last two main courses, Peach's Fairgrounds and Bowser Badlands, are where the difficulty hits a huge spike. We suddenly have very little areas to safely hit our ball, and some new hazards and obstacles that make even the slightest mistakes very costly. Granted, there's a trick to kind of save scum it. If you take a terrible shot, you can just save your game and restart the hole as many times as you want. Sure, it's not a very genuine run then, but one bad hole can derail an entire tournament very easily, and
Ain't nobody got time for that.
birdies are hard to come by in the final courses, and a triple bogey could send you packing. That's what truly makes this game so challenging. You need that ability to play from behind and overcome a bad shot. Probably the best one I got recorded was right here. I barely got the impact point within the red line, and I ended up in the rough. Next, I was getting ready to set myself up for at least a decent putt for par, but instead, this happened.
Nice shot. Chip in. Nice birdie. Very well done.
Overall, the game has a steep learning curve and still poses many challenges to me over 20 years later. Mind you, all the stuff I've described so far is just for basic play in tournament mode. If you don't already have enough variety based on the mechanics and difficulty alone, then I have some great news for you. In addition to standard tournament play, there are so many other game modes, and we'll get into that in our next segment. Now, admittedly, I don't play the other modes nearly as much as just the standard game. All that craziness that I described is typically satisfying enough for me. However, we still need to acknowledge the immense amount of replayability that Mario Golf Toadstool Tour has. Also, many of these additional modes are how you unlock the new characters and other important pieces to completing the game. Yeah, so I'm not sure exactly what is considered doing 100% in Mario Golf Toadstool Tour, but there's a lot to get done here outside of just the tournaments, and I've never come close to finishing all of it at all. First off, you'll notice that as you get birdies or better in tournament mode, you start seeing them counted off to the side. Well, so that's your first side objective here, is to get 50 of these between the 6 main courses. With that, you unlock the game's first hidden character, Boo. So yeah, now it's time to talk about hidden characters and star characters. There are 4 secret characters: Boo, Shadow Mario, Bowser Jr., and Petey Piranha. I'm pretty sure I've only ever unlocked Boo. That's because he's the only one that can be unlocked through tournament mode. Bowser Jr. and Petey Piranha are unlocked through the side games, which are brutally difficult. The birdie challenge requires us to get a birdie on all 18 holes of Congo Canopy without messing up once. You have to be completely locked in with your tee shots for this one because long putts are extremely dangerous to encounter. I have never beaten it, so no, I have never unlocked Bowser Jr. It's a similar story for getting Petey, just with some different objectives. Shadow Mario requires us to complete the ring challenge, which honestly is something I've never tried too hard at. Perhaps my next goal will be to give this one a real shot. For now though, I'm just a scrub who has only unlocked Boo. When you unlock characters, they come with a star next to them, which is pretty much required to play in the star tournament. Otherwise, the characters don't have nearly the stats to compete with the longer tee distances. To get stars for other characters, you have to challenge them and win. Again, this is something I've done for a few of them, but have never come close to completing every single star challenge on a different file. I started a new file for this one, so that's why you don't see any stars. Other game modes are mostly just for fun, like club slots or coin attack. They're little novelties that certainly add more and more layers to the game, but they aren't something I pick often. Club slots though is a really fun concept. Only getting one wood, iron, and wedge instead of your normal loadout is a neat spin on the game. There's even more layers to Mario Golf Toadstool Tour. If you hold Z at the title screen and then push start, you get access to the hole-in-one challenge and password tournaments. I completely forgot about this secret until I did some research for the video, and I can't believe there's even more modes in this thing than I originally remembered. The game even has some GBA support with its sister game, Mario Golf Advanced Tour, and I totally forgot that was a feature as well. I never had the cable as a kid, and I only briefly ever had it as an adult. I even had Advanced Tour growing up, but not that stupid link cable. So no, I never experienced it before, and I don't have any footage to show for what the content may be. Of course, we don't just have to enjoy Mario Golf alone. There's plenty of options for multiplayer. Typically, I pick the old reliable of just stroke play where we compete for the lowest score. I mentioned playing this game with others in the beginning of the video, and I'm going to elaborate that I have a few friends who got really into this game with me at one point. Overcoming that initial difficulty curve was very worth it, and we started to get competitive. I'll tell you, I have never heard a man's character attacked more than over a missed chip in this game. Our go-to matchup was on the Shifting Sands back 9. I think we just picked that because it sounds the best, but that course is awesome. I mentioned one of my favorite holes in the game, requiring the decision of taking a safe route or a risky one to save a stroke. Well, that's part of Shifting Sands back 9. Although we did a ton of trash talking ourselves, the best part of multiplayer is that there is built-in trash talk. If you embrace being the villain in your friend group like me, then you need to pick Waluigi and spam exactly this line constantly. Overall, we have an immense amount of variety in Mario Golf Toadstool Tour. Like I said, I've played this game for over 20 years, and I still feel like I have barely scratched the surface of it, and I'm still pretty bad at it, I think. It's a game that can keep you entertained for years on end. Another part of what helps us keep entertained will be covered in the next section. Visually, the game cannot be beat. Well, at least for GameCube standards. It has that same level of graphical polish that something like Mario Sunshine does. The game truly got that Nintendo love, if you will. Every course, literally every course, is so appealing to look at. Of course, we get a lot of green, especially in the first two, and despite Lakitu and Cheep Cheep being pretty similar overall, they have some good differences because of the mountains in the background for Cheep Cheep and the forests in Lakitu. Shifting Sands is my favorite for many reasons, as we discussed, and of course the visuals are also part of that. I just freaking love desert levels, and I mentioned that in my Mario Kart 64 video about Calamari Desert. There's no exception here with Shifting Sands. It was our go-to course in multiplayer for some good reasons, and the visuals are one. The other, though, is absolutely the audio. I'll take a moment here to explain that the first 4 courses have 2 themes. The first one plays during tournament mode, and the other plays in multiplayer. So you essentially get a single player and a multiplayer theme for each one, though I know they can be heard in some other modes as well. They did a phenomenal job capturing different energy levels with the single versus multiplayer themes. Using Shifting Sands as an example, the single player theme is pretty mellow. It's what I want to be hearing while competing solo in the desert. It's a great theme though. However, when the boys come over and the gloves are dropped, we get this banger. That is such a huge shift in tone compared to the single player theme, and I know I blew it with putting that as the intro theme, but it's so good, and they both work really well for the course. It's ultimately a cool phenomenon to analyze. The different themes change the way you approach each course. Now, perhaps they feel like Peach's theme and Bowser's theme were good enough to fit all game modes since they don't have any variants. It's a bit hard since those courses are tied a little more closely to one character to have variations in themes, so I get it. If I were to remaster the game though, you better believe I'd be wanting some additional themes for courses 5 and 6. One last thing I'll note visually too is that I love that the final holes of later courses have you transition from day to night. It captures the essence of playing a long 18 holes and overcoming all the challenges along the way. Hole 18 of Peach's course just might be the most visually appealing one in the entire game. Although I play the side games much less, they also have some unique music, and many of these themes are solid as well. My favorite has to be the coin attack theme. It goes so hard for no reason. Congo Canopy is another honorable mention for sure. However, that theme just reminds me of blowing it on the birdie challenge over and over again. It still has a slapping bass line though, I'll give it that. Mario Golf Toadstool Tour may pose some very hard challenges, but at least you're getting your socks rocked to some great tunes. Pair that with amazing visual aesthetics and variety, and it truly has some of the best presentation that the GameCube could offer. Yeah, so I love this game. I think you might have gotten that idea by now. It's one of the most quintessential games of my childhood since it was the game that came with my GameCube. When I first got it, I didn't even know that low scores were better in golf. However, now I just made a video discussing the deeper mechanics of the game and all its intricacies, like ball lie. Mario Golf Toadstool Tour has been a part of my life for a long time. Admittedly, I'm not a golf fan, but I am a Mario fan and I generally enjoy a lot of other sports. However, this game transcends my lukewarm attitude towards golf and has provided me with some of the best gaming experiences of my entire life. Thanks for watching.